General Shankar, General Dua sir, welcome to the General's Talk on, of course, our neighbor Pakistan going through a bit of a political turmoil termed as a constitutional instability and so on and so forth. Politics wise, sir, it seems very, very weird what is happening. Yesterday was a very interesting day. How would you like to see this, sir? क्या हो रहा है वहाँ पर?
Actually, I'm quite disgusted. I won't say disgusted, quite sad. Imran Khan was India's best bet, and he's out. And this, the other lot who have come in, we don't know where they'll go, and they might, obviously they're towing the party line, and also they have lot of kind of pro-Chinese also. They would be. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you said India's best bet, you see, I agree that in the recent past, Imran Khan has been making a lot of pro-India statements. In fact, I mean, quite overtly so. But earlier on, if you notice, a couple of years ago, his statements were rabidly anti-India. He attacked Modi personally. He spoke very viciously about Modi's RSS and Hindutva connect. So actually made it very difficult for our government, which had in any case taken a stand that till there is terror, there is no talk without terror, let down and all that. So, and he really upped the ante. So I'm not very sure that what he was saying off late was perhaps to a different gallery and for a
No, I'm not talking about the fact that he was friendly with India or something like that. Look, he was the worst thing to have happened to Pakistan. From that point of view, if he's actually single-handedly rigged Pakistan in the past 3 years, which no one else has done. To that extent, he was good for India. He was India's best bet. He's brought his problems between the politics and the army, right? He's broken a lot of traditions. I know he's anti-India. I mean, what he said other day is just only for, as a last-ditch effort to this thing. But his interest is no more, he's never stuck to the constitution. In fact, he's never come to he's hardly come half a dozen times to the parliament in this entire 3-4 years. That's what people say. From that perspective, I think it's our loss. Because Shabaz Sharif is the one who brought, I wouldn't say he was instrumental in getting the Chinese in. He was instrumental in getting the CPC through. Right? It's not that just because these steps have come, it's going to be stable. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that.
I agree as far as the stability part is concerned, but let me paint a very different kind of a picture. Imaginary, of course. Like you said, Imran Khan has actually brought in a wedge between the government and the army, at least as far as he was there. Now, whenever the elections take place, I mean, there will be elections, that's a foregone conclusion. Whenever the elections take place, I feel that he's also struck a chord in the population. Population at large is also not very happy with the way the US has been treating Pakistan. So he has struck a chord in the population. For all you know, if he plays his cards well, he might do well again at the electoral battle. And if he does, let's imagine if he actually does, then in that case, if he manages to come to a decent, a decent performance at the election without the support of the army, then he will not be beholden, and then he will really. Actually, and also, last sentence, just what I want to say, just keep that at the back of the mind as a postscript. All said and done, 3 marriages aside, he is one man who does not have a family or a son or a nephew to propagate. So to that extent, it is a very different kind of a combination.
What do you throw in your views, Radhi?
Sir, my thing is, you both have kind of hinted towards it, but skirted around it. I want you to kind of talk about the politics within the army. Now, what has happened is we know there is a bit of a break between the top echelons of the Fauj in Pakistan. We know it for a fact what is happening around, and the Pakistanis are saying this, so it's not something which is that we are
I agree with this.
something like that. But so this break which is there, this will also feature in the elections. The army is not going to step back and say, "Hum neutral ho gaye hain, jo we."
Absolutely.
Actually, for the first time, you see the army is part of the problem and not apart from the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're sucked into politics. Now, one part of the army will be rooting for Imran Khan. Okay, we also have to understand one thing. All of we are all either Fauj or you, Aadi, have a Fauji background. One of the most important things in the Fauj is Izzat, and and Imran Khan has one guy who stood for the Izzat of Pakistan. He represents a lot of Izzat, having won the World Cup. And that will strike a chord, like what Dua was saying, with the masses. So you can't write him off. You can't write him off then. I don't think you can write him off even now. Because he's still got 140 to 140 odd members in the parliament.
He's just a little below the 50% mark.
Below the 50% mark. He'll never let this parliament function. And he might topple the government in the first instance. And the way I look at it, this entire thing which he has done in the past 1 week, he knew that he will lose. He's already in a campaign mode.
Yeah.
Right. That is clear, sir.
Right, Satish, what do you think will happen to the economics of Pakistan with all this?
Well, the economics of Pakistan, they're at one of the lowest points ever. Their foreign exchange, if I have it right, is just to $6 to $7 billion. I mean, they don't have any foreign exchange reserves. They have to borrow money to pay back their interest debts, and to pay back just to debt servicing itself. They have to borrow, and their lenders like Saudi Arabia and China are giving them giving them small doses at very harsh rates and harsh terms. So and by itself the economy is not moving. On the other hand, the military spending has gone up tremendously. I mean, if my figures are right, more than 60% of the percentage of expenditure, the government expenditure is going towards defense. So with that kind of figures and with this kind of economy, I think they are headed for trouble. They're one of the best bets would have been, academically speaking, would have been trade with India, which is not happening to a zero. So all in all, economically, I don't know what can resuscitate them.
So trade in India, but my point is, what do they trade with India today? Their textiles are down. They were a food surplus country which has gone off. Hardly anything left. They've not been able to pay us for the essential medicines that they've taken.
No, it's not that way. Look at it from, even if they have to import wheat, if they import wheat from India, it will be cheaper than importing Indian wheat via Dubai, or Indian goods via Dubai. Okay. And then that will revive their economy. In fact, most of their people have said, not only trade, they've also said, buy peace with India, you get water from India.
Yeah, if you just allow me one small intervention, then you please take on. Aadi, if they just allow us the road to Afghanistan, they will make revenue out of that. If they just allow us road passage to the Central Asian republics, if they allow the Tapi pipeline, oil pipeline, they will also get energy assurance, as well as they will start making revenue out of it. So there are
huge.
There are huge things to be, and these are proper revenue streams, not just.
It's not one-day revenue. Yeah. You see, I remember the Pakistani ambassador, he had come and addressed us during our NDC. And this is what he had to say. He says, we are next door. There's so much saving for India and so much saving for Pakistan. Of course, he was boasting about Pakistan at that point of time, which was doing reasonably well. Not now. Now it is the necessity.
Yeah.
Right. Any other form of economy is not going to take off. And what's more important, if they buy peace with India and have economy, it will help them on their western border. I mean, security is all shot. I mean, we've
In fact,
discussed this so many times.
let's
Yeah.
discuss security. Yeah,
Yeah.
their security. We'll talk about India, Pakistan separate the external, but the security, especially uh, the aspect that you just mentioned on the western borders, because the Pashtun problem has acquired a new dynamic, totally new dynamic, with the Durand line becoming a little volatile and acquiring a dynamics of its own with Taliban in power there. Their Baluchistan problem always continues. So they are having, so while army is embroiled in this and all this goes on in the center or in the capital, but their army is also very much embroiled in their operational areas. And their security situation, I'm intentionally not touching with India because we'll talk about that separately. But otherwise, on both sides, their our hands are full. And the last thing I'd like to say, there is still a danger of violence spilling on the streets and on the political turmoil bit. And if it goes beyond the police or police forces, then the army will have to underwrite that security process.
There's another angle to this politico security setup. We can't forget that Tehreek-e-Labbaik. Tehreek-e-Labbaik, Pakistan, is an extreme radical organization. They've done so many things, blasphemy related issues, or rather purported blasphemy related issues. They've got a big vote bank. This gentleman Imran Khan supports them. In fact, it is a well-known fact that the politicians are in competition with such radical elements to gain a vote bank. Right? That vote bank, if it comes into the mainstream, you're going to have a different problem altogether. That security situation also is a problem, apart from whatever is happening there. Right? And then there's this issue of the security of CPAC. We've seen how many people have been, how many CPAC projects have been hit. And there's a whole slowdown on the CPAC projects, right? So that part also is there. And if there's political turmoil, these chaps are easy sitting ducks. So I don't see any kind of stabilization on that front.
True.
As far as weapons are concerned, Sir, General Bajwa very clearly mentioned that the best of the weapons in Pakistani arsenal are from the US. That tells you another story about the Chinese weapons that they've got. But that puts them in a lot of pressure with regards to the tug of war, which is going to emerge between the US and China post the fracas in Ukraine finishes. Pakistan is going to be in a deep soup again. Or will it make itself useful for the US again?
Useful, I don't know how Pakistan will become useful, because to a large extent, USA started using Qatar to its outreach into Afghanistan, right? So to that extent, its utility and its great strategic equation has gone off, and especially with the focus today on Ukraine. Okay, so that is to that extent it is reduced, but there are other issues. I mean, what do you think about China and its equations with China? That is a thing. I mean, Satish, your idea.
See, equation with China, Aadi simply touched upon the weapons issue, which is a fact that it's not only Pakistan, it is also Bangladesh, it is also Myanmar. There are reports coming out of these countries that they are unhappy or not satisfied, should I say, with the quality of weapons and equipment that China is supplying. So they're not working very well. So Pakistan also must be feeling the same pinch. And like you rightly said, that they always wanted US weapons. I mean, they would prefer the American weapons, there's no doubt. But China is got its hold on Pakistan now more so now that US is a little, I will not use the word disenchanted, but a little more detached than it was during the Afghanistan days from Pakistan. So now China is entrenched economically, politically, even security-wise, they've stationed so many of their personnel there today in CPEC and otherwise. In Gwadar, they are hoping to have a military presence, naval presence soon. So, all in all, Pakistan, with the kind of debt it owes to China and is not able to pay back the CPC investment, CPEC investments that China has made, I think is getting more and more beholden to China, whether the generals like it or not. So what is happening that China will be able to enforce its will on Pakistan, perhaps even in all other fields as well.
In fact, that is why, when they caught in the real Chinese trap, right? That is why the chief in that Islamabad dialogue, I said, look, I have to go to Turkey, I have to go to Germany to get weapons. Implicit in that silence is that I don't want to go to China. Right? He didn't mention it, but he's trying to veer away from China. Okay. And look at it from the other point of view. You heard Imran Khan openly saying we should go the Chinese way. And not the American way. Okay. So there's a dichotomy which is you come up and they have to live with it. Okay. And this will actually marginalize them, the way I look at it in international relations.
True.
See, this dichotomy, even the Chinese won't be happy with whatever is happening. The Americans definitely are not happy. Okay. And over and above that, this business of Imran Khan going to Russia, when that came to mention even during the parliamentary proceedings yesterday, right? That they were told not to go and still he went. So that all that is there. So overall, I think we are looking at a Pakistan which is in a bit of an international doghouse. Maybe I'm a little strong.
Because of what you're saying is right, because of the language that has been used by Imran Khan in certain occasions. It's undiplomatic. You don't see that happening. With India, he's been doing it for a long time. But I think the first time the wrath went towards the European Union and America during that 2-hour-long press conference that he had given. Dua sir, I mean, this is a contradiction between the army and the politics again.
So you hit the nail on the head, and this is my view, that he is playing with the army's point of view. He is trying to make a statement to the army and not to Europe or not to the US. Well, in US, I thought, like I mentioned in the beginning, as far as US is concerned, he's trying to play that card very strongly with the average Pakistani. After all, with globalization and the glasnost that internet has brought about, everyone sees this, and the educated people in Pakistan are a little chagrined about the fact that the whole US has over them. To that extent, China also, but we are now discussing US. So I think Imran Khan has intentionally been making these statements to as if to follow an independent path, independent of the army.
Yeah, it's not only an independent part. Like you rightly said at the beginning itself, it's to get election mileage, right? So that the electorate, which is quite anti-American, right? Will respond to him. See, like I said in the beginning, he's planning for the next election, and this opposition, or rather now who are going to be in the ruling bench, are planning to hold on to power. That's the crux.
But we must also remember, today they are united opposition, but they have been at each other's throat for decades. So at the slightest pretext, their chinks will start showing, and then again he might emerge as the largest thing. After all, PTI has.
The thing is that all know that elections are on the cards.
Yeah.
If everyone knows elections are on the cards, they'll make use of this time to protect their base so that they come back relevant, and they're all vying for power again. And if all are vying for power, I think Mr. Imran Khan has got a head start on all the others.
Absolutely.
Right? And to a large extent, I think he's pulled a trick over the army also. he might be a genie who's got out of the army's bottle.
That's probably
Unless
very
there's
scary
some
to the army, sir.
no, unless there's a mass. That's what I'm getting to. The point is that what General Dua also said in the beginning, if he comes back, then it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
And
It won't be
probably
easy.
it won't be
It
easy.
won't
Yeah,
be
I
easy
agree with you.
the way we started talking. If it happens, it won't be easy. It may be messy. He may not even be successful. But to break that glass ceiling itself will be a big thing.
Whatever said and done,
Right.
so whichever direction that the establishment takes over there, that will make a huge this thing. And currently, they're not kind of showing their cards. So
So they always have harsh options, harsh alternatives. That has happened to a couple of other prime ministers. So even if we get into that, then it's a different ballgame. So
Look,
we'll have to wait and watch.
we'll have to wait and watch. But martial law coming back is not
Yes. Martial
already
law, deposing a prime minister, putting him behind bars on some
all
pretext,
this
all
is
that. That's why he wanted a safe passage. One of the things that he wanted,
see.
NAD should not be under NAD
Yeah,
laws. He should.
I
ELC
agree with all this, but one thing the army won't do is now try and touch Imran Khan or put him behind bars. You put him
He will
behind bars, he will be
his popularity will soar.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, they will not touch him.
Yes, if they do, and that is why he will roam free.
Right. So it's actually Pakistan, to my way of looking, has gone into a position where it has never been, or where we have never seen Pakistan. The only time, probably the only equivalent, was when they got defeated in 71 and Bhutto became the chief martial law administrator at that point of time. And he had the hold over the army till Ziaul Haq came in, briefly, for about a year or two, when whatever he said was the only thing in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right? But that was only time when army was a bit weak in Pakistan. After that, I'm now seeing, again, it's on a little shaky wicket. And their break in between, we don't know whether General Faiz will become whatever it is and all. But for the first time, there is a bit of a break in the monolith construct of the Pakistan army.
Which is bound to happen when a general gets a 3 years extension, because there is a whole generation of senior officers which gets superseded and goes home. So now again, there is talk, and I'm sure that won't happen. That he might get another extension. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen that way. But the fact is, the mere talk of it is enough to put in dissensions within ranks, because people are frustrated. Now the next lot wants to come up and become chiefs. And
we'll have to see who are the people getting retired, sir, so that will kind of open out the whole game with regards to which side the establishment is kind of favoring.
See, the thing is this. The trickiness in this whole story is this. The chief is retiring somewhere later this year.
November, yes.
Right? If there has to be a government to replace this chief. Okay? It is not that there's no government at that point of time and the chief retires. What happens? Again, the Supreme Court will nominate the next chief. It can't happen.
Can't.
So there is a bit of a tricky thing coming up. And if one sees how things are going, if Mr. Imran Khan can destabilize the government before this turnover comes, then things will be totally tricky. I mean, just think.
Yeah, but I'm sure before the chief's time comes, they will have a government in place. They will have to have. They will go in for elections.
Then they'll have to go for election.
These parties, with two parties with their differences, will start erupting. So they cannot really continue as a government. Caretaker government, fine. Whether it's Shabaz Sharif or whoever.
No, but Shabaz Sharif is not a caretaker. No, he's elected.
No, I know. He's elected now. But I'm saying this government itself, they will have to go in for elections, is my guess.
If not now, after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months.
They'll have to announce it, and before they actually go in for it, they'll have to fix the army chief.
Look, all I'm trying to make, I'm only trying to make one point. Only trying to make one point. Come September, October, November, when the chief has to retire. I don't remember of late when.
November he
November.
retires.
Come November, he has to retire, and there's no government in place. Then what?
Yikes.
It's a possibility, right? Then who will nominate the chief? How will he get nominated? Who will select? Who's the selection process? Abhi tak to it doesn't matter. The army chief nominated or selected the prime minister, and the prime minister gave this thing. It was a exchange program. Abhi kya hoga? We'll see. I'm only highlighting the probability. That's all.
True, sir. But sir,
Right.
एक चीज है, whatever said and done, this time, what sells most in Pakistan is conspiracy, sajish, as how they put it across. But in this entire conspiracy that has been brought about, USA, West, all that stuff happened. India was very rarely mentioned. Nobody kind of, ventured this way. India-Pakistan relations, nobody talks about it. No, none of the leaders are saying anything except the army chief who said normalization.
But army chief has said it more than once.
Yeah.
This present General Bajwa, in his nearly 6 years completed, he has said it on 3 different occasions in a very bold and strident manner. He has underwritten, it's the army which has underwritten this ceasefire. For the first time in decades, this ceasefire is really meaningful. The ceasefire at the LOC I'm talking about, which is 1 year and more than a month, 1 year and a month, which, as a man who has served long years on the LOC as it is called in the civil, I can tell you has made a lot of difference in the lives of people living on the LOC, both sides of it, whether they are soldiers or citizens. So this has been a very positive spin-off. So let us say, let's say if Imran Khan has been making some statements where he has not endeared himself to the government, Indian government, as I mentioned earlier statements. Let's not talk about the last 2 months. Then today, if and we were discussing about the economy. So if there is a concerted push, if the back channels are active, they could manage a ceasefire. If they now try to bring about rapprochement, rapprochement between India and Pakistan will obviously happen with small baby steps at a time, if and when it happens. When it happens. So when it does, we spoke about trade, it makes sense. We spoke about this, it makes sense. As it is, they are unable to, because their attention is diverted towards their Western front. So they are unable to give that kind of focus towards sending in terrorists and all that. So all that is happening on a low ebb. So maybe this is time for us to make small steps. I'm not saying everything will get resolved tomorrow, but we are only talking of getting back to a pre-2008 times when things were little better between the two countries.
Actually, at this point of time, to take any step has its own problems, because there's no stable government on the other side.
Mm.
Who's in the chair? How long will he be there? We don't know. We have a state of some kind of a suspended peace, right? Or a peace in suspense. Leave it at that. Just ignore Pakistan. Because any step you take today might even backfire. Just keep your track 2 open, back dialogue open, channels open, then leave it at that. Once you get some stability in Pakistan, then we can talk. Till then, the way I look at it, till the time there is some stability in Pakistan, it's a good opportunity for us, because I've always felt, this is my conviction, that a Pakistan which is inward looking is our best bet. In fact, the way I look at it, we have one flank which is secure today. And we have enough problems. You look at our problem with, international problem and the fallout of the Ukraine campaign. We are walking a tightrope there. It lets you concentrate there. It lets you concentrate on Sri Lanka. After all, what is happening in Sri Lanka is not good, but then it gives you a great opportunity. You need to focus there. Whatever is happening in Pakistan, the best thing you do is let them do what they have to do internally, lest they deem it as Indian interference. I mean, I'm sure Satish has a word on this because he's handled Pakistan at closer quarters than I have.
No, but you're right. Absolute bang on when you say that looking Pakistan is better for us. And to that extent, I also started saying the same thing in a different manner, that this is the time on all angles, as we've discussed. Once there is, even if there is not too much of stability in politically, but to convert some of these small improvement in relations is possible.
Yeah, you build a
As I
base.
said, baby steps. For example, if we have reduction in infiltration, if we have cross-border trade, not even India-Pakistan trade, but that cross-border trade, exchange of personnel across the LOC between POK and JNK. So all those small little steps, they help to mitigate the strenuous relationship. They help to ease the way or pave the way for bigger steps to follow.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But look, let me ask you a question. What do you think will be the effect in the valley with all this, especially with summer coming up?
In the valley, okay, I've also tweeted on this, drawing a lot of traction yesterday. But the fact remains that today in the valley, alienation is still there. However, the youth, a lot of them are getting engaged in economic activities. A lot of things are sort of normalizing. The grassroots empowerment has taken place because of panchayat election, etc. So all I'm saying that there is a significant chunk of population which is slowly becoming pro-establishment. With that happening, and on the other hand, when they see that their own separatist leaders who have been totally marginalized, political leaders are also at the moment
Yeah,
marginalized.
almost there.
Now, and they see their only savior was, I'm now talking of those who are alienated. Their savior was Pakistan. Pakistan is in doldrums every which way, we've just discussed in the last
Yeah.
30 minutes, and political turmoil. So, if you are looking up to somebody and that pillar itself has fallen, so it to that extent actually it helps us, because if we give a positive strong push, also highlight our narrative should highlight the weaknesses and failures of Pakistan polity, economy, security, and everything else in between. So when that is done, it can only help us to consolidate our position, and we should not let this opportunity slip by without taking some very concrete steps.
Yeah, I agree with you. Some outreach has to be there.
Absolutely.
But I just want to highlight something. General Dua said pro-establishment when he spoke. So see the difference. He spoke of pro-establishment of the civilian government in India, and when you talk of Pakistan and say pro-establishment, it is the army.
The meaning of establishment changes the moment you cross the LOC.
Cross the LOC.
In India, the establishment is with an E, and in Pakistan, it starts with the S. So establishment there is establishment in India. So
okay, so that's how it is.
Good.
Right, and well.
So how about the closing comments, sir? This Pakistan discussion is obviously very interesting to all of us. Request closing comments so that we can look back after about a week, 10 days, and see how the situation has opened up.
Well, all I'll say is we are heading into uncertain times, interesting times, something which you've never been. And I maintain this is the time where we just leave Pakistan to do what it has to do. Give it time to sort itself out. And give ourselves time to maybe take incremental steps. More than that, we shouldn't. Because we don't know which way the dice will roll.
True.
And this is the time for us to look externally. There are other issues. There are other issues opening up. This opens up a pushback on China through either Sri Lanka or Nepal or even Myanmar. Because just last month, I think our foreign secretary went to Myanmar, right? And we are opening up some kind of a dialogue. The moment he went and came back, the Chinese sent someone there. So there is a movement happening, or rest of our neighborhood. And of course, the bigger picture of the Ukrainian thing is there. So let's look after ourselves at this time. That's
I
my take.
I agree with what you said, but I'll just build on it. I'll not repeat. I'll not desist from repetition. But like I was saying earlier, the the field is wide open for many things to happen. And that can only happen if we are sort of thinking on our feet. We don't let this opportunity pass by, whether it is from creating good governance and better outreach in Kashmir to capitalize on, their disappointment with the failure of various issues in Pakistan, whether it is for improving relations at small baby steps at a time, and whether it is to look on the larger plane, which does not concern Pakistan. You spoke about China and other international relations. But we really need to think fast. And I see today that our MEA is actually very nimble and very agile to grab fleeting opportunities. So that is exactly what I feel that we should be doing right now.
I think some very interesting comments. A lot of analysis about the army, the politics, the economy, the international relations, which is pretty much in a doldrum for Pakistan. One can say that about the country itself. But let's see in the next 10, 15 days, I think some sort of a structure will emerge, which way the army will bend, which way the politicians will be able to drag the country on towards, something that we will look for once again at the General Stock. Thank you, sir, for joining me. Till next time, Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you.